Hey team, it is 6:35 a.m. and I'm sitting in the classroom before you get here, and I will not be here when you get here because I will be at home with my sick kid and you will be here with your presumably well substitute. So you just took your quiz. I'm going to talk to you about chapter 16 and chapter 17 for a little bit, and then you're going to get some reading time for chapter 18 and 19, and we'll have a quiz on that tomorrow. So if you want to open up your books, I'm going to be using this version, and so if you don't have that version, you could just kind of listen and pay attention. That's the problem with having multiple versions of books. So the beginning of chapter 16, this is where Hester finally goes in to talk to Dimmesdale and tell him about Chillingsworth and the fact that she's known about this, and the poo is about to hit the fan. We also get to see Dimmesdale at his complete and utter wimpiest. So near the beginning of this, on page 174 in here, there's a lot of information about where they're going, right? So they couldn't meet in town, and so they go to the forest. One, because, you know, as we have talked about, Puritans view the forest as kind of an evil place, right? That's where the wild things can happen, and Christianity is in the city. So they go out to that, and they also need to go to a fairly dark place. Right, we talked about this with the scaffold, the idea of light and darkness regarding the scaffold, where in the beginning of the book, Hester was up on the scaffold in the daylight, and her sin was kind of made known to everybody in the town, judged her, and she could then get her sin out in the open. And Dimmesdale went up there in the middle of the night in the darkness when no one could see, right? So they need to go to a fairly dark place because Dimmesdale is still kind of hiding in the darkness. So we start talking about sunshine in here, and it said, this hemmed it in so narrowly and stood so black and dense on either side and disclosed such imperfect glimpses of the sky above that to Hester's mind it imaged not amiss the moral wilderness in which she had long been wandering. So that idea of a moral wilderness, right? Again, we leave the city, and then she is wandering and doesn't know where to go in regarding her morals and what she should be doing and how she should be acting, and also just literally in the forest. Now, she has a little conversation with Pearl about the sunshine, and she says, "Mother," said little Pearl, "the sunshine does not love you. It runs away and hides itself because it is afraid of something on your bosom. Now, see, there it is, playing a good way off. Stand you here and let me run and catch it. I am but a child. It will not flee from me, for I wear nothing on my bosom yet. Not, nor ever will, my child, I hope." So Pearl runs after it, and Mom says, "Run, child, run. Catch the sunshine, it will soon be gone." So Pearl runs and catches it. And then it says, "See," said Hester. So it envelops Pearl in the sunshine because Pearl has no secrets. Hester, however, still does have a secret. Her secret about the affair, having the affairs out in the open, right, but she still is holding the secret about Dimmesdale and Chillingsworth. So that's why she can't be in the sunshine. On the next page, they continue to talk, they sit down, and Pearl asks Hester to tell her a story. And she says, "A story about the black man," answered Pearl, taking off her mother's gown and looking up, half earnestly, half mischievously, into her face. "How he haunts this forest, and carries a big book with him, a big heavy book with iron clasps, and how this ugly black man offers this book and iron pen to everyone that meets him here among the trees, and they are to write something, their names in it with their own blood, and then he sets their mark upon their bosoms. Did you ever meet the black man, Mother?" "Who told you this story, Pearl?" asked her mother, recognizing a common superstition of the period. "It was an old dame in the chimney corner at the house where you watched last night, but she fancied me asleep while she talked of it." Now, again, I think in addition to Pearl hearing the story, this is another one of those instances of Pearl knowing more than Pearl really knows, right? And so Pearl knows there's a connection between Mom and the devil, and she has kind of pointed out Chillingsworth rightly as the devil, as we've seen as he started to change throughout the revenge that he's taking out on Dimmesdale. Now, going on to the bottom of that page, Mom is trying to end this conversation, and "Wilt thou let me be at peace if I tell thee?" asked her mother. "Yes, if thou tellest me all," answered Pearl. "Once in my life I met the black man," said her mother. "This scarlet letter is his mark." So when she's talking about once she met the devil, that would be when she had the affair. And the mark of that, which was put there by the people and not by the devil, was the scarlet A. Thus conversing, they had entered sufficiently deep into the wood to secure themselves from the observation of any casual passenger upon the forest tracks. Here they sat down on a luxurious heap of moss, which, at some epoch of a preceding century, had been a gigantic pine with its root and trunk in the darksome shade. If we were to go through this chapter and the next chapter, but especially this one, there's lots and lots of adjectives about things being dark and dim and mysterious, because that's the best place for them to talk. Okay, going on near the end of the chapter, on page 178, Here's another example of Pearl knowing more than Pearl knows, and it says, Go, silly child, said the mother impatiently. It is no black man. Thou canst see him now. Through the trees it is the minister, as Dimmesdale is starting to walk slowly up the path toward them. And so it is, said the child. And mother, he has his hand over his heart. Is it because when the minister wrote his name in the book, the black man set his mark in that place? But why does he not wear it outside his bosom, as thou dost, mother? So again, she's making connections between the hand over the heart of Dimmesdale and the Scarlet Letter of Hester, and also Chillingsworth. So, as they continue to walk, Hester says, Go now, child, and thou shalt tease me as thou wilt another time, but do not stray far, keep while thou canst hear the babble of the brook. So Pearl goes off playing and singing up by herself. When the elf child had departed, Hester Prynne made a step or two toward the track that led through the forest, but still remained under the deep shadow of the trees, again more darkness. She beheld the minister advancing along the path entirely alone, leaning on a staff which he had cut by the wayside. He looked haggard and feeble, and he betrayed a nervous despondency in his air which had never so remarkably characterized him in his walks about the settlement, nor in any other situation where he deemed himself liable to notice. Here it was woefully visible, in this intense seclusion of the forest, which of itself would have been heavy trial to the spirits. There was a listlessness to his gaits, for he saw no reason for taking one step further, nor felt any desire to do so, but would have been glad, could he be glad of anything, to fling himself down at the root of the nearest tree and lie there passive for evermore. I'm just going to let that sink in for a minute. I talked about how much I hate Dimmesdale, and he is one of my least favorite characters in any book, and this is the reason why. So he's walking back through the forest. He was visiting with somebody, and you know, we've talked a little bit about psychosomatic illness, and how sometimes, you know, when you're emotionally really distraught or having a really hard time, it could be depression, it could be anxiety things. It can manifest itself physically, and you can make yourself physically ill. This is what's happened. In addition to who knows what exactly Chillingsworth's been doing to him. It's possible he's been poisoning him or you know, just talking to him so much that it makes him so upset that it makes him ill. But it says here, the only thing he wanted to do, the only thing that would make him glad, if there was anything that would make him glad, would be to throw himself down on the tree roots on the ground and lie there passively forever. He just wants to lie down in the leaves and die. And he actually says that to Hester coming up here pretty quick as we go into chapter 17. And this is where the confrontation finally is, on page 181. So strangely did they meet in the dim wood with Dimmesdale, that it was like the first encounter, in the world beyond the grave, of two spirits who had been intimately connected in their former life, and now stood coldly shuddering in mutual dread, as not yet familiar with their state, nor wanted to the companionship of disembodied beings, each a ghost and awe-stricken at the other ghost. So they haven't talked really since any of this happened, since the affair, I don't think. And she very easily could have gone to talk to him. I mean, you know, he's a preacher, so she very easily could have just gone to talk to him in his chamber, but I think she thought this would be more fitting. On the next page, he says, Hester, I am most miserable. She says, the people reverence thee, and surely thou workest good among them. Dost thou bring no comfort? So she said, look, the people love you, and you're doing good work. You're helping them. Doesn't that make you feel any better? More misery, Hester, only more misery, answered the clergyman with a bitter smile. As concerns the good which I may appear to do, I have no faith in it. It must be like a delusion. What can a ruined soul like mine effect towards the redemption of other souls, of a polluted soul, towards their purification? Now, he said, look, basically he's saying, I'm a sinner, how could I help other sinners? Which, as we know, is backward, right? It's helped Hester both be empathetic towards other people and also recognize sin in others. It's helped Dimmesdale be a much more powerful preacher and more effective in that regard. And he said, I have laughed in bitterness and agony of heart at the contrast between what I am and what I seem. Satan laughs at it. Now again, Hester feels bad at this point. Whoa, it got dark in here. Now it's light in here. Lights went off and I almost wet my pants. Moving forward, I did not, just for the record. Everything's nice and dry. I have laughed in bitterness and agony of heart and contrast between what I seem and what I am. Satan laughs at this. So again, Hester feels badly about everything. You wrong yourself in this, said Hester gently. You have deeply and sorely repented. Your sin is left behind you in the days long past. Your present life is no less holy in very truth than it seems in people's eyes. Is there no reality in the penitence thus sealed and witnessed by good works? And wherefore should it not bring you peace? Her point about you've done good work, right? You've helped people. Doesn't that work towards your penitence? Doesn't that work towards making up for the sin that you committed? And he said, "No, Hester, no. There is no substance to it." And he goes on, and on 183, this, if I was Hester, would drive me nuts. He said, "Happy are you, Hester, that wears the scarlet letter openly upon your bosom, mine burdened secret." So he's like, happily, you get to display your sin in public for everybody to see and judge you. I have to deal with this in secret where nobody can deal with it. Nobody can see me. Had I one friend, or it my worst enemy, to whom, when sickened with the praises of the other men, I could daily betake myself and be known as the vilest of all sinners, methinks my soul might have kept itself alive. Even thus, much of truth would save me. But now it is all falsehood, all emptiness, all death. Now, this is where Hester kind of finally breaks the news to him, going on, and he freaks. And it said, its result on, such was the ruin to which she had brought the man. Once, nay, why should we not speak of it, still so passionately loved. Hester, at one point, passionately loved Dimmesdale, and it says here, why not speak of it, still so passionately loved. Hester deserves so much better than Dimmesdale. And Dimmesdale is the worst, and she is really good. Moving forward. So she tells him, and then Dimmesdale gets really angry. "Oh, Hester Prynne, thou little knowest of all the horror of this, thing, and the shame, the indelicacy, the horrible ugliness of this exposure of the sick and guilty heart of the very eye that would gloat over it. Woman, thou art accountable for this. I cannot forgive thee." Now, Hester's going to put him in his place here very quickly. "Thou shalt forgive me," cried Hester, flinging herself on the fallen leaves beside him. "Let God punish, thou shalt forgive." With sudden and desperate tenderness, she threw her arms around him and pressed his head against her bosom, little caring his cheek rested on the scarlet letter. He would have released himself, but strove in vain to do so. Hester would not set him free. So she grabs him and hugs him, and he tried to get away, but she wouldn't let him, because Dimmesdale is not a strong person, and Hester is tough. Now, she said, "Wilt thou forgive me? Wilt thou not frown? Wilt thou forgive?" I mean, it's almost like, you're messing with your little brother or something, and she's like, you grab his hands and you're making him hit himself in the face, and you're like, quit hitting yourself. And so she's holding him and won't let him go. She's like, "You gonna forgive me? You gonna forgive me?" Anyway, finally, he does, going on to the next page, and it said, life had never brought them to a gloomier hour. It was the point whither their pathway had so long been trending that darkening ever as it stole along, and yet it enclosed a charm that made them linger upon it, and claim another, and after all, another moment. This is the first time they've been able to see each other, right? And it said, and yet they lingered. How dreary they looked, the forest track that led backward to the settlement, where Hester Prynne must take up against the burden of the ignominy, and the minister the hollow mockery of his good name. So they lingered an instant longer. They look back the direction they would have to go back to the town, and they think about the life they're going to have to go back to, both the minister pretending to be someone he's not, and also Hester having to deal with all the people treating her so badly. No golden light had ever been so precious as the gloom of the dark forest, so both of them felt very thankful they were kind of in the dark where nobody could see them. Here, seen only by his eyes, the scarlet letter need not burn into the bosom of the fallen woman. Here, seen only by her eyes, Arthur Dimmesdale, false to God and man, might be for one moment true, since they don't have to pretend in front of anyone else that can actually be true to each other. Now, on 187, this is where we get some of Dimmesdale's wimpiest hits. He says, and I, how am I to live longer, breathing the same air with this deadly enemy? So after he found out about Chillingsworth, he doesn't want to go back to his home because that's where he is. Exclaimed Arthur Dimmesdale, shrinking within himself and pressing his hand nervously against his heart, a gesture that had grown involuntary to him. Think for me, Hester. Be art strong. Resolve for me. Okay, so think for me, Hester. Tell me what to do. And she says, first you got to go. You can't live there anymore. And he said, but how to avoid it? What choice remains to me? Shall I lie down on these withered leaves, or I cast myself when thou didst tell me what it was to sink down in thy winds? His reaction to this is, do you want me to just lie down in the leaves and die? Is that what you want, Hester? Then she says, alas, what a ruin has befallen thee. Wilt thou die for very weakness? There is no other cause. She's like, are you going to die for being a wimp? Then he says, be strong for me. Advise me what to do. And she said, is the world then so narrow? Exclaimed Hester Prynne, fixing her deep eyes on the minister's and instinctively exercising magnetic power over a spirit so shattered and subdued that it could hardly hold itself erect. Doth the universe lie within the compass of yonder town, which only a little time ago was but a leaf-strewn desert, as lonely as this around us? Whither yonder leads forest track, backwards to the settlement, thou sayest, yes, but onward too. Deeper it goes, and deeper into the wilderness, less plainly to be seen at every step.
until, some miles hence, the yellow leaves will show no vestige of the white man's tread, and there thou art free. So brief a journey would bring thee from a world where thou hast been most wretched to one where thou mayest still be happy. Is there not enough shade in all this boundless forest to hide the heart from the gaze of Roger Chillingsworth? She's like, look, we could take that path back into the settlement, or if we walk the other way on the path, it wouldn't be too far before there's no one around, right? And no one who's going to judge us, and no one who we need to hide from, and we can just go do our own thing. Then he says, it cannot be, answered the minister, listening as if he were called upon to realize a dream. I am powerless to go. Wretched and sinful as I am, I have had no other thought than to drag out my earthly existence on the sphere where Providence has placed me. Lost as my own soul is, I would still do what I may for other human souls. I dare not quit my post, though an unfaithful sentinel, whose sure reward is death and dishonor when his dreary watch shall come to an end. So he's like, I'm too weak to go. I can't do it. Then she says, leave this wreck and ruin here where it happened. Meddle with it no more. Begin all anew. Hast thou exhausted the possibility in this failure of one trial? Not so. She's like, have you given this any other shot? Is there anything else you could do? No, you haven't. The future is yet full of trial and success. There's happiness to be enjoyed. There's good to be done. Sorry, I lost my spot. There's good to be done. Exchange this false life of thine for a true one. Be, if thy spirit summon thee to such a mission, the teacher and apostle of the red men. Or, as is more thy nature, be a scholar and sage among the wisest and the most renowned of the cultivated world. Now this is the great line. Preach, write, act, do anything, save lay down and die. And that's really the advice he needs to hear. And she's the only one who can give it to him. Give up then this name of Arthur Dimmesdale and make thyself another, a high one, such as thou canst wear without fear or shame. Why shouldst thou tarry so much as one day in the torments that have gnawed into thy life, that have made thee feeble to will and to do, that leave thee powerless even to repent up and away? She's like, why are you wasting even one more day living this crap life that you're living? Oh, Hester, thou tellest a running man a race wait, let me start over. Thou tellest of running a race to a man whose knees are tottering beneath him. I must die here. There's not strength or courage left me to venture in the wide, strange, difficult world alone. He's like, look, you're telling someone who can't run that they have to go run a marathon, which, again, is ridiculous and over the top. And he's like, all I can do is lay down here and die. I can't go alone. Alone, Hester. Thou shalt not go alone, answered she in a deep whisper. Then it was all spoken. So once again, she saves his butt because she said, you don't have to go alone. I'll come with you. Okay, so you're going to read the next 2 chapters for tomorrow. And so that is 18 and 19, and we will have a quiz on that tomorrow, and I will see you then.